In recent years, Australia has grappled with an influx of refugees from war zones and troubled spots around the world, including Sri Lanka. It recently emerged from 30 years of a brutal civil war in which mass killings and disappearances were commonplace. Last year, almost half of the asylum seekers who arrived here were Sri Lankans, many with tales of gross abuses of human rights. But the government has been sending Sri Lankans home, more than 900 in fact, since the start of last year, claiming, as the Sri Lankan government does, that the war and the threat of persecution are over. But tonight, one Sri Lankan Tamil living in Australia tells a very different and disturbing story, a story of torture at the hands of the Sri Lankan Army Intelligence just last month. Heather Hewitt has this exclusive report.
This Sri Lankan Tamil family in Melbourne is living with a terrible secret. The parents, who are afraid to be identified, have told their 3 young daughters their father was injured in a motorbike accident during a recent visit to his homeland. The real story is a very different and shocking one. Kumar, as we're calling him, says that just 3 weeks ago he was abducted, raped and tortured by Sri Lankan Army intelligence officers.
I was bleeding and I was naked and no place to sleep except at the floor like a dog. I thought like dying, but I'm thinking of my kids and family back here.
Kumar arrived in Australia in 2008. He fled here from Sri Lanka after being interrogated and accused of links to the Tamil Tigers. He says he'd been a school bus driver when he was coerced by the Tigers to deliver parcels for them. Soon after, Army intelligence took him in for questioning, and he says he was threatened.
And I got afraid and I thought it's not safe to live in Sri Lanka anymore.
After arriving in Melbourne, Kumar studied to become a chef. His family joined him last year when he was employed by a local restaurant on a work visa. But in late March, he needed to fly home.
This is the stamp when I arrived to Sri Lanka on 30th of March 2013.
So that was before anything had happened to you?
Yeah, the first day.
Kumar actually went to look after his uncle because his uncle wasn't feeling really well.
Kumar's friend Samji, a Malaysian Tamil, this week learnt Kumar's full story for the first time.
And then he got picked up in a white van, but this guy just took him at a gunpoint and then, without giving any reason, then abused him.
Less than a week after he'd arrived in Sri Lanka's Gumbar province to manage his uncle's restaurant, Kumar says he and his brothers were stopped by 2 men in a white van.
They just kept the pistol on my head and they told my brother that we are from Army Intelligence, and they took me into the van and they just tagged my eyes with a black cloth.
When the van finally stopped and the blindfold was removed, Kumar could see where he was.
It's a dark room with a dim light, and also the walls are with blood, dried blood.
It was a sign of what was to come, as the men claiming to be Army intelligence grilled Kumar, he says, about links to the Tamil Tigers, which he repeatedly denied.
They came back and they just started again hitting me with a log at my back, and now I got a spine problem as well.
Tell me, what happened then? What else did they do to you?
The 2 guys were drunken and they came to me and they just put their hand on my body and they just rubbed me and they, like, I had some sexual torture as well.
They raped you?
Yeah, like they squeezed my balls and they just inserted the ice at the back of my anus, and they did it like 3 times, and when they did the 3rd time I fainted.
There was still worse to come. On the 4th and final day, Kumar's captors branded his back with hot irons.
I thought that's the end of my life, and I just fainted. Again, I fainted.
Kumar, Do you mind showing me what the scars are on your back?
Yes, sure.
Are you okay? Oh, that's terrible. Kumar says he only managed to make it home because his uncle paid a $20,000 bribe to his captors. He landed in Melbourne 2 weeks ago. It must still be very painful, is it?
Yes.
I learnt of this through a phone call last Wednesday evening that came to the Tamil Refugee Council. The doctor who had seen this man 2 days earlier was quite shocked by what she'd seen, and she contacted the Tamil Refugee Council and we came into it from there.
The doctor had already issued a referral for Kumar to get urgent psychiatric treatment, saying he was deeply traumatised. He'd been tortured by Sri Lankan Army intelligence and burnt with heated rods. Professor Louise Newman, an expert advisor on asylum seekers' mental health, was also consulted by the Tamil Refugee Council.
In my view, it is a credible story. He provides detail and is very preoccupied with some of the minute details of the atrocities that were actually performed on him, which is very typical of the accounts that we get of people who've been through these sorts of experiences.
Well, it's certainly believable. There have been a series of reports in just the last few months from the US State Department, from Human Rights Watch, from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, detailing this kind of treatment.
Gordon Weiss was the United Nations spokesman in Sri Lanka during the Civil War.
One has to remember that the people in charge of Sri Lanka at the moment have got a long history, stretching back to the 1980s, of using torture and abduction in order to suppress segments of the population.
I know if I go back, sure I'll be killed.
There is no such truth in such false allegations. If he has been treated in the manner that he has just explained by you, he is welcome to come and present it to even to me or present it to any government authority with his name and identity.
Kumar and his supporters say he's not about to take that risk or his family in Sri Lanka might be penalised. But the High Commissioner is questioning his credibility.
If they are doing it to bring discredit to Sri Lanka, they are making a serious mistake. Sri Lanka is transparent.
The High Commissioner, in keeping with other proxy agents for the government of Sri Lanka, represents a government which is accused of mass atrocity crimes. So it's no surprise that there will be blanket denial. Recall the very same government was denying that they were using heavy weapons during the war, that they were bombing schools and hospitals.
Yet the Australian government doesn't believe there's still a problem. It's just returned 38 of the Sri Lankan asylum seekers who arrived by boat at Geraldton earlier this month.
Since 2010, there has been no evidence of returnees being discriminated against or arrested, let alone tortured. And I think it's wrong to say that Tamils live in fear and are fleeing their country.
When they see my back, they will know what has happened to me, because a lot of stories doesn't come out from Sri Lanka.
Kumar's injuries mean he can't work and he's now in danger of losing his visa. If that happens, he faces deportation within a month, so his next step would be to apply for asylum.
That I can't forget. No one wants to get these kind of things in their life. I pray to God, no one must get this kind of punishment.
Heather Hewitt reporting.